Have you ever heard it said, or have you ever said, I don't know how to get my ideal job. I don't know how to get my ideal dream job. Want to hear how the wealthy do it? Stay tuned.
From Philadelphia, the home of the Liberty Bell, Financial Freedom Radio starts now. Here's your host, Raymond Jewell.
Welcome back, everyone, to Financial Freedom Radio. We're doing I believe this is our fifth podcast. Let me bring in our production and our engineer, producer and engineer. I don't want to slight the titles. Steve, how you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good, Dr. Ray. How are you?
Terrific. I couldn't hear you there for a minute.
Yeah, well, you gotta clean out your ears a little bit. I was talking fine.
Sure you were.
Oh, come on, cut me some slack, Jack. It's hard. It's a hard job where everyone would want it.
I know. Somebody's got to do it, right?
That's right. Better me than you.
So let's dig in here. I'm going to repeat some things that we talked about because, as I've said before, repetition is a major part of the wealth creation strategies that we teach, because if it were that easy, everybody'd be doing it, right, Steve? So we want to make sure that you understand the principles and they become second nature to you. So we talked about imaging and visualization, desire, and all of these go hand in hand. So we're going to tie that in today to how to get your ideal dream job. And we're going to go into strategies that wealthy people have been using for years, and that we're going to talk about how you can do it. And if you just stay with us through this, it'll all work out. You'll get a lot of the information, but it's built on imaging and visualization. That is key to this whole thing, folks. It ain't any more complicated than that. Imaging and visualization is key to wealth creation. And then there's other principles that are involved in it, but these are the two major focuses. So if you find yourself hearing repetition, that's it. And if you could do this on your own, read the book, you don't need me. But it's very hard. And a lot of people try to do it and they go down that road, and sometimes they forget and it just escapes them, because we're bombarded with so many distractions on a daily basis that we forget to do these things. So let's talk about it. I'm going to dig into the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And to give you a little backstory on Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill met with Andrew Carnegie, who was the wealthiest man in the world at the time. And Carnegie gave him these secrets as to what he was doing. And Napoleon Hill put it in his book. And this was in the early to late 30s when it came out. And it kind of laid everything out in a method to understand. So if you read that book, that'd be great. And of course, along with going through the workbook that we have. But let's start. I'm going to go into, there's one part of it that I want to talk about. And this is a fellow who actually thought his way, imaged his way into partnership with Thomas Edison. Steve, do we have slide number 1, please?
Got it right there for you, sir.
Okay. So the man who thought his way into partnership with Thomas Edison, he wanted to be a partner with Thomas Edison. And so this was his lifelong quest. He truly thought that things happened when you constantly had it in your mind. And so he actually thought his way into the job. He managed to stay focused, had a definite purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for the job that he wanted to do with Edison. And nobody had ever done this or heard about this, when it was happened, but they did it, lots of times. So the second slide talks about thoughts are things. And so when he had the thought in his mind, he materialized it into the job. But the job didn't just come to him. He had to go seek it. So the chief characteristics of the job that he was looking for was that he had to have a burning desire and he had to have a definite purpose. He wanted to work with Edison so badly that he actually got on a train, went to Edison's lab, and he rode. Back then, you could hop a train, so he rode in a boxcar. You didn't buy a ticket because he didn't have any money, and so he didn't know whether Edison was going to hire him or not. And so he's there in New Jersey at Edison's lab in Orange, New Jersey, and he presents himself and said, "I'm here to be a partner with Edison." Not just a job, he was going to be a partner of Edison. And Edison actually gave him a job, not a partnership. He said, "This guy's standing in front of me and he looks like a bum. I'm going to give him a job. I'm going to make him a partner of what?" So he actually gave him a job, and Barnes now was working for Edison. He was so determined to become a partner that he worked for Edison. I don't think Edison paid him a lot of money, and he worked with him constantly until a partnership materialized. That's right. It materialized when Edison was inventing, and I think it's next slide, Steve.
You want 4?
No, give me 6. Okay. Here it is here. Barnes did not get his partnership with Edison on his first interview. He got a chance to work for Edison's offices at a very nominal wage, doing what was unimportant to Edison. But most important to Barnes, because it gave him an opportunity to display his merchandise, his talents, his definiteness of purpose to Edison, his intended partner. And months went by and nothing happened. And he just continued to work for him. All of a sudden, Edison comes out with a dictation machine. I can't remember. I think it's the other slide. He talks about it, but yeah, here it is. Just when Edison said that, or Barnes said to Edison on the occasion, far less important than which he thought of. Edison himself said so. Well, what happened was Edison came out with I hate to read stuff like this. Edison came out with a dictaphone, and he needed people to sell it. And so Barnes said, "I will sell it for you." And yeah, here it is here. You put this up on the screen, Steve. When the opportunity came, it appeared in a different form, and it was different from what Barnes had expected. It was coming at him from a way that he had no idea was going to happen. Edison had perfected a new office device known as a dictating machine. Now, it was back then called the Ediphone. And his salesmen were really not excited about selling this, and they did not believe it could be sold. But Barnes saw an opportunity, and he said quietly to Edison, "I'll sell it for you." And next slide. And so he wanted to become a partner with Edison, as we said. So all of a sudden he said to Edison, "I'll do it, but as a partner." And to make a long story short, he did it, and he made millions of dollars with Edison selling this machine, and was a partner with Edison. So he actually thought himself into the job. And even though we struggled through this, the point is very clear. Barnes thought himself into the job of being a partner with Edison. And when that occurred, he made millions of dollars. The secret here is he didn't lose sight of it. He picked out what he wanted to do in his life, and he stayed focused on it until it happened. He had a definitive purpose. He didn't quit. He stayed focused because he knew it was going to happen. In his mind, it was going to happen, and it happened. There's other areas that we could talk about, but the definitive purpose is very interesting, and many people understand the concept but don't do it. Steve, you had a suggestion? Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I forgot to share that. Trying to work through these slides is somewhat difficult, especially when you've got a lot of information here. And one of the things that my producer hollers at me for is reading out of a book. Sometimes that can be boring and put you right to sleep, or you'll tune out. We don't want you to do that. So you're absolutely correct, Steve. Definitive purpose. And this is the problem that many people have, is quitting too soon. And we're going to put up on the screen, here's a part in Think and Grow Rich where Napoleon Hill talks about a fellow who's 3 feet from gold. One of those common causes of failure is the habit of quitting. Leave that up while I go through this, Steve. When one is overtaken by temporary defeat, people quit. Every person is guilty of this mistake at one time or another. And he cites this guy, is an uncle of R.U. Darby. Now, R.U. Darby back in the day was a pretty well-known insurance salesman. But before he became very well-known in insurance, he caught the gold fever in the gold rush days, and went west to dig and grow rich. He had never heard that more gold had been mined from the brains of men that had been taken from the earth. In other words, inventors like Edison, we talked about, created all sorts of things to develop wealth. But he went out west and he started to strike it rich, and he staked a claim and went to work. And even though it was hard, he stayed focused on what he was doing. Next slide, please. And so, even though he's staying focused, he started to strike gold. He uncovered a vein of gold. He uncovered a mine, and so then he decided to go home and get people to invest. So he got the investment that he looked for, and then he went back and bought all the equipment and everything, and then all of a sudden the vein that he found the gold in dried up. Well, he was pretty discouraged. So when it dried up, he sold his equipment to a junk dealer for pennies on the dollar, and went back to his life back in Maryland. Well, all of a sudden, the junk dealer decides to go look for gold, and 3 feet from where the vein was, he discovered a vein of gold that was unparalleled in gold discovery. It was one of the largest gold discoveries ever. even though this fellow made millions of dollars in the life insurance business, he stayed focused on that, he was right close to the gold. Had he just moved over 3 feet, he would have found it again, and the rest would have been history. But he didn't. He quit. And many people do that. So when we see people that complain that they don't have the results they're looking for, they're quitting too soon. Quitting too soon is a problem that people run into. And definitive purpose is a problem that people have. They don't have enough conviction into what they're doing to stay focused on the end result. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story, and this is my story. I was when I got right out of undergraduate school, I went to work for a pharmaceutical company. I'd come back from serving time in the Army, and I went to college, so I graduated from college late in 1972. And so I was looking for a job, and one of the jobs I could get was with a pharmaceutical company and they paid, I think I made $12,000 a year, and I got a company car, which was a lot of money back in 1972. So I go on and I work, and I get promoted from where I was working in Virginia up to Washington, D.C., and handled government sales for this company, and called on, the surgeons generals and the White House and Capitol Hill and all that. And then I got recruited away from the company I was working for after about 8 years by a generic house who wanted to develop a government sales division. So I went to work. They paid me a ton of money. I went to work and built their division, and then they fired me. So I'm fired. I'm unemployed, and I've got a mortgage payment. I've got family to support, and so I have no job. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I always wanted to go into the life insurance business. And so I took a job that only paid me $1,200 a month. And I had to bring in commissions that would offset that. They called it validation, $1,200 a month. And I've got to go from zero to making money in the insurance business. Well, I always wanted to do it because everybody I saw in the insurance business was doing well, and they were driving fancy cars, and I knew nothing about it, but I knew I wanted to do it. So I did it. And it was tough. I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills or anything, but I did know that it would work. There was no doubt in my mind that I was not going to be successful in the insurance business. Well, to make a long story shorter, 35, well, I still have an insurance license. 40 years later, I did very well in the insurance and finance industry. And so I'm sharing this story with you because even though times were tough, I made it work. I did it. I stayed focused. I stayed focused on that path for 40 years. I still do it. I still have clients that I service. It's very easy to lose focus. Andrew Carnegie says the problem with the American businessman or entrepreneur is lack of concentration. They can't stay focused. So one of the things that we need to internalize is pick that job you want. Look for the job. Come up with a job that really excites you, that can give you huge passion, not just something that pays your bills. Too many people are just paying their bills and they're not enjoying what they do. Find something that you enjoy, that you can have a passion for, and then focus on how you're going to do it. I've heard stories of people going to work. There was one story I heard of a fellow who went to work in a haberdashery shop. That was where they sold clothes and hats and all that stuff. And he went in and he said, "Do you mind if I come in here on my spare time and fold shirts?" Because he saw that people would come in and try stuff on and then leave it in a pile. And these people were having to fold it and put it back. And he saw come in and do that, and ended up becoming a manager and a very high official in this particular clothing place. I've heard stories about, there's one story, and when you read Think and Grow Rich, you'll find it, where a fellow who was in the construction business always wore a red shirt. He showed up earlier than everybody, and went home after everybody, because he knew that the boss did that. So he showed up and he wore a red shirt, and the boss recognized the fact that this guy was there always with a red shirt on. There's all sorts of ways to get people's attention, but you've got to have a passion for what you're doing. You don't just hop from one thing to another. Nowadays, people are spending so much time hunting for jobs. They work there a couple of years and they go somewhere else. They're doing it just for the money. And consequently, their heart's not in the business. It's not there for the company. Your heart should be with your employer if you're working for somebody. If you're the employer, your heart should be there. So I leave you with this because it's important. It's important to get clarity about staying focused, looking for that ideal job and staying focused, and just shooting for the moon. Right, Steve?
Yep. I just wanted to throw in a thought that I had too, because as you were telling that story, I remember back. Have you heard the story of Steven Spielberg?
No.
Do you know how Steven Spielberg started his career as a director?
Wasn't it with the guy who did Star Wars? Weren't the two of them together?
No, even before that. He actually was taking a tour. I forget which studio. You can look it up, but he was actually taking a tour of one of the studios, jumped off the tour bus, ran into one of the tents or trailers or whatever it was, and started acting like a director, and started behaving like a director, and partnered up. And everyone just assumed that he was there. He knew what he was doing. He actually started his career as a director by doing exactly what you just said. He knew what he wanted. Ever since he was a kid, he wanted to be a director. He knew that's what he wanted to do, and he saw the opportunity to take advantage of it. And that's how he got started being a director. I forget the specifics of the story, but I do remember him jumping off the tour bus to go behave like a director, and everyone just assumed he was. And next thing you know, he became a director.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's true. I mean, and I think it really does speak volumes in today's society, where people, you can be distracted by the next shiny object and lose focus on what you're doing. And as soon as you start jumping
Absolutely.
from one thing
Yep.
to another, it's never going to manifest. And it's so easy. It's so easy to quit, and it's so difficult to persevere. And I think people often take the easy road, and it's
Right.
frustrating.
Right. Yeah, stay focused, folks. I always tell you, give us 90 shows. And if you don't like what we're saying, don't ever watch us again.
And hopefully by 89, I've got all my technical issues fixed out.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you here next week on Financial Freedom Radio.
And I
Thank
am
you.
not throwing the outro yet, because I also want to get a plug in here. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast and you missed it, you need to go check out youtube.com/Financial Freedom Radio. All the notes, all the slides that Ray was referencing are on that video. You're going to want to check out the video version of this episode, and check us out. Hit the subscribe button. It does wonders for us. It helps our YouTube's metric. This is all stuff that's not really relevant to Ray, but stuff that's relevant to me as the producer. It helps our metrics. Like the video, leave some comments, interact with our video. The only way we're going to get our message out to more people is by you guys contributing on your end as well. So that's all I wanted to say. Ray, do you want to say anything else before I hit this button?
No, you did it great.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast. If you want to learn how to create real sustainable wealth like the extremely rich people do, or maybe you just want to sustain the wealth you already have, you need to check out Dr. Ray's new book, Why the Rich Are Rich. Ray's been coaching clients for 35 years and has completely unlocked the secret strategies that rich people use day in and day out to grow and sustain their wealth, regardless of what's going on in the economy. His book is completely free, and you can get it by going to whythericharerich.com and entering your email address. Again, that's whythericharerich.com. Head over there now.